Thank you very much, DJ Abshir. Salam alaikum. Thank you very much for everyone for joining us today. My name is Mohammed Absalam. I'm a product manager in the civil service, and today I am the host for this event. I'm also one of the members of the Somalis in Tech team, and we will today hopefully talk through a very topical and something a lot of people have mentioned recently, maybe going through themselves, overcoming imposter syndrome. So before hopefully I begin and talk through and we actually start the event, I want to mention that we'll be taking questions through somalisintech.nuni.io. So that's the URL. So if you haven't already, do sign up. This is a platform by one of our community members, Mukhtar Rage, who should be with us today as well. Nuni.io. It's very simple. You should be able to sign in within a minute or so, and we'll be taking questions through there. And the great thing, aside from this being a platform built by one of our community members, is that it's very easy to use, and we'll be able to vote. You'll be able to vote, shall I say, and I shall aim to answer the questions that have got the most upvotes to begin with. And we've already got loads of questions on there. So even if you don't have a question to ask, sign up and vote on the questions that you would like our lovely panelists to answer. So that's somalisintech.nuni.io, and you should be able to sign in with Google authentication. It took me about 40 seconds. So hopefully it takes you even less, because it does tend to take me quite a while to do these things. So before we begin, this is SIT, Somalis in Tech. If you haven't heard from us before, thank you very much for joining. If this is your first time, if you have already, a reminder never hurts. So we're a community for all things Somali and tech. So what does that mean? Like, what are we trying to do? We've sort of trying to organize ourselves around these sort of three overarching goals. So the first one being empower. We want to support the upskilling of our community members. We want to connect them with one another. So we're building a community of techies, but also non-techies. I'm a product manager. I'm not a technical product manager. So actually I should have put that in there. But also it's a place where we can support each other. So hopefully through events like this, but we also have, like, in our Slack channel, which I'll talk about shortly, people asking each other questions and answering. And we have a lot of actually talented members that give some answers that you might even struggle to find on Stack Overflow. Not bragging at all. And finally, partnerships. So the aim is to collaborate with organizations that help us to achieve our goals as well. So we're open to that, and we have previously with some of our events done that, and we hope to do more of that in this upcoming year. So some things that we are excited about as a community: we now have 600 members on Slack, sharing amazing knowledge, tips, and more. So that's really amazing, and some good banter as well from our very own Abshir, which I must say I'm a fan of. So even if you don't want to go there for knowledge and tips, it's also a good space just to share. And share some jokes and the likes. We also have a few members who have actually been offered jobs from posts that we have on the community. So one of our channels is Jobs and Opportunities, and recently somebody actually got a job through a job that they found on there, and then followed with a person. So let's say Hassan posts a job at Shopify, me seeing that on there and then asking Hassan, like, what is this about? Can you tell me a bit more? And actually being hired. So there's also that as well. So do join, and hopefully we will have some upcoming Somali women in tech events as well. So these will be specific to the women in our community, and it's being led by a sort of a group within. So that's really awesome. They have a lot of stuff coming. So if you want to join the Slack channel, we have a few members. So we've got Idul and Hamda, Faiza, and others, Asma as well. So do ping them a message in the Slack. And this is a closed channel, so it's sort of by an invitation only. So once you sign up, if you haven't already, or you're already a member of the Slack channel but you'd like to join this specific channel, then do reach out to one of them, Idul, Faiza, Hamda, Asma, and they will add you to this channel. So yeah. Cool. So how can you get involved? For today, you can use the hashtag Somalis in Tech. Hopefully others can hear about this event as well, mainly on Twitter. And so the event will be on YouTube. So anything, as soon as we share this hashtag, it will live, beyond. So hopefully people who aren't able to make today, I know that this time we're trying to make it as inclusive as possible because we now have members all over the world almost. So we've tried to pick this time because it seems to be quite fitting, but for those who aren't able to join, we'll be on this event. Will be not only live stream, but you'll be able to catch it on Somalis in Tech channel as well. And we're on Twitter. We recently reached the milestone of 2,000 followers. So do join us, do interact with us, and we're quite active there as well. We've got Idil, who's doing an amazing job on building our presence on also on Facebook, by the way. And some of us might not be on Facebook anymore, but there's a lot happening there. So we also have a Facebook page. So if that's more your vibe, then do join us there, and Instagram. But finally, the main thing I want to say is, and join in on the fun, join in on the action. If you go on this URL, somalisintech.com/Slack, you'll get a short Google form where we just ask you a few basic questions before giving you a link to to join the Slack channel where all the action is happening. So cool. So today we are here to talk about overcoming imposter syndrome. So I've just got a short little blurb about what that is. For anybody who's new to it, or I know we all have kind of different thoughts about it, but the thing that we're going to go with today is that imposter syndrome is the experience of feeling that you are not as competent and successful as others believe you to be. It might be that you are a bit unsure of yourselves at time, but this is something that many successful people often feel like their self-doubt holds them back, and they attribute their achievements to luck rather than their talent or skills. As a result, they can often suffer from burnout, high levels of anxiety and stress. And imposter syndrome is linked to perfectionism and need to overachieve and self-doubt. So hopefully, after the end of this, we'll have I'd love to myself also have a good way of coping mechanism, but also hearing how others have managed or are managing with this. Cool. So today I will run through, we have 3 lovely speakers that I will introduce, and then you won't be hearing as much from me, hopefully. So the first person I'd like to introduce is Ruqiyya Sheikh Mohammed, who is a full stack engineer at Bona. Ruqiyya is based in the Twin Cities, Minnesota. During her free time, she enjoys spending time with her baby boy, traveling the world, and creating fun DIYs. So Ruqiyya is, of course, a member of our community, so you can reach out to her on Slack. But also here on the bottom left, you could see she's also on Twitter. So Ruqiyya, with 2 A's and then SM. So do follow her on Twitter and reach out to her there. We also have Kaltoon Ahmed, who is a software engineer at Lantec, and after dropping out of university to pursue a career in tech. She is also a member of the SIT team, and I have had the personal pleasure of working with Kaltoon on a few projects. So yeah, Kaltoon is dope. And here you see at the bottom left as well, Cal_et_al. So do follow Kaltoon on Twitter as well. Again, Kaltoon is a member of the Slack channel. And then finally we have Hassan. Hassan Jidde is a public speaker, author, and engineering graduate. He is a self-taught front-end developer currently at Shopify. And Hassan can be reached there as well. He's also on Twitter and a member of the community. So an observation that Ruqiyya made just as we were catching up is that all our speakers are in different parts of the world. So we have Ruqiyya in Minnesota, Hassan in Canada, and Kaltoon in London. So it's a testament to, I guess, how global our community is becoming. So this is all good and something that I'm personally happy about. Cool. So I'll leave that slide there, and we will hopefully, before getting to the questions on uni, I will share a few. I've got a few questions myself that I will hopefully share and can begin to answer. So as I said, it's somalisintech.uni.io. If somebody could please share that link in the chat for everybody to just be able to sign in, that would be great. And I also didn't mention that we'd love to get feedback after the event, and we've got a little form, literally 2 minutes, I think it'll take to fill it in. We want to continue to improve. This is probably 101 product management. We want feedback, and without knowing what works and what isn't working, more importantly, we won't be able to improve as a community. So we'll be sharing that halfway through, I think, and towards the end as well. So please do fill out that form. It means a lot. And even if you don't want to answer all the questions, give it a go. So we'll share that shortly. But yeah, so our first question, just before we get into the topic, I just want to know a little bit more about your stories. How did you get into tech? So Ruqiyya, can we start with you?
Oh yeah, of course. Okay, assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm Ruqiyya, like Mohammed said, and to start off my story, I just want to say I come from a non-traditional background, so I didn't have like the traditional way of getting a computer science degree. I actually attended a boot camp, but before I get to that point, I started off like I was majored in international relations. So my goal was really to work in like the UN or go to law school or something of that sort. And somebody advised me, they said, before you spend a lot of time and money into law school, you should really work in a law firm or like work in the legal field. And I did that for a while, and I realized that wasn't for me. Like it wasn't a subjective field that I really thought objective field that I thought it would be. The justice system in America is not that great. So then I decided to move to Kenya for a while, like half a year. And I really wanted to dive into like all the non-governmental organizations there, like the UN. And I actually ended up getting an interview for the UN, but it was for a technical internship. So like it was like a front-end developer. I didn't know what that was at the time, but I said, you know what, I'm gonna try to get my foot in the door. So they sent me a coding challenge. I didn't know what that was at the time. I went on like Code Academy and a bunch of online resources, and I tried to learn how to code in like 8 hours. That didn't obviously work out. I didn't get that position, but it really like opened up my eyes to like, wow, I really want to learn more about this. Like, what is this coding and all of that? So I moved back to Minnesota, and I started looking up different ways to get into the industry. And I knew I didn't want to go to school for 2 years. Like I didn't want to go back to getting a graduate degree or going back to getting a bachelor's. So I looked up something, and I stumbled across boot camps, and I found like a couple boot camps in Minnesota, and I decided to go to one that was like a full stack program that was full time. That for 6 months you do this boot camp. They teach you front end and a little bit of Node and database and all of that. So I did that, and that really was like the best decision I've ever made from like a career standpoint, because it really helped accelerate me, and I networked a lot while I was in my boot camp. And I ended up having a mentor who worked in BuzzFeed in Minnesota. So BuzzFeed has a couple offices across the country, but their tech office was in Minnesota. I networked with her. I got into I was very interested in it. So I ended up landing an internship there after I graduated from my boot camp. And it was like my first job in tech. And I'll touch more on like imposter syndrome when I was there, but that was basically my long kind of story to tech.
No, that sounds really good. Because interestingly, I also did international relations and didn't know about product management, for example, which is the field I'm in now, until when I got another job as an engagement manager, and then I came across it. So it's really interesting to see that people are coming into tech from a varied range of backgrounds. But yeah, that sounds really good. Thank you very much, Ruqiyya. Hassan, how did you get into tech?
Definitely. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Alaikum salam.
Similar to Ruqi, actually, I don't have a tech background. I actually graduated from a pretty unique program. I studied mining engineering in Toronto. And upon graduating, I had no intent or knew anything about tech whatsoever. I just had trouble finding work at that moment in time. And subhanAllah, I landed a job at a consulting company called Deloitte. And only in this job is my first year in. I noticed a lot of the projects I was part of, there was a big development community and a big development initiative happening in a lot of these projects, and it needed people to help out. So I at one point just pitched in and said, hey, I'm interested in learning this. It sounds pretty cool. I don't know what these people do, but They seem intense, so let me put me in. And ever since then, I've managed to stay in doing what I've actually been enjoying to do. That period of time was incredibly difficult, and I think it definitely ties into the topic of this entire discussion. Being around people who had years and years of experience, and I had no idea what I was doing. Like the most basic programming concepts were just completely unaware to me. So a lot of the things I had to do, and oftentimes I would mention to people that I did learn on my own, and I did spend a lot of time just teaching myself. I also had the immense privilege of doing it with people who were really talented. So whether it's within the work community that I was part of or other communities that I signed up for. So I stayed in that company for a few years. I did a lot of other side projects, a lot of other initiatives where I can just learn as much as I can. I joined Shopify shortly after. That was also a journey of its own. I actually left a full-time job to join as an intern, just so I can get that experience at a company like Shopify. And then since then, alhamdulillah, I've been part of the same company. And I've been focusing on front-end engineering mostly. So definitely a lot of snippets I can share between that. But yeah, that's a very high-level summary.
Okay, awesome. I'm sure there'll be some questions coming through about some of the challenges that you faced, even in an internship. Thank you very much, Hassan. Kaltoon, what's your story? Alaikum salam.
So the same as Hassan and Ruqayya, I didn't have a background in tech either, and it took me a really long time to realize that I wanted to be a software engineer. But I have an interesting relationship with my education. I didn't do too well in school, and a lot of that was my fault. I didn't really try hard enough. But I ended up going to university to study a degree I wasn't that interested in, but I thought would impress my parents. So I was studying diagnostic radiography at the time, and I was going to placement because they send you to placements to get experience of what it's like to be a radiographer. And I didn't like working in hospitals. I didn't like the long hours. I didn't like standing up for like 8 hours a day. I was really bored. I felt like I was always doing the same thing. So I was just slogging through this degree. And I realized going into my third year that if I finish this degree, then it would be really difficult for me to find a way out and do something that I'm really passionate about. I actually failed an exam at the end of my second year, which pushed me even further to be like, am I going to spend extra time working on this degree that I don't really feel passionate about? So I decided to drop out just before my third year started, and I kind of had an idea of what software engineering was, and really I actually just wanted to work for Google because it looked so much better than working at the NHS. So that was something that drove me in the beginning. And so I was teaching myself early on how to program. I was doing a lot of HTML, a lot of CSS, a lot of JavaScript. But after a while, I hit a wall where I couldn't teach myself any further because I didn't know what it was that I needed to know. And then I looked into some apprenticeships, and alhamdulillah, I got an apprenticeship with the company that I work with now, and they've been training me up for the past 2.5 years. So yeah, that's how I got into tech. And I took the apprenticeship route, which is really good route because you learn and you pay and you get paid at the same time.
Wow, that's really awesome. It's crazy to think what a failed exam, which could be a bit of a sad and heartbreaking thing, trying to have to explain that to Haya and what comes with it, and what what doors that could open up. So mashallah, it's I'm glad you failed that exam, if I may say so, Kultun, and because it's allowed us to meet. So that's really dope. Cool. I think this is quite interesting. We're already seeing quite a few themes that, like for instance, everybody here, including myself, has had to go through a transition period of sorts to get to where they are now. So I'm sure that's something that will be more apparent, and we can maybe pick that apart a little bit later. Just for anybody who may have joined late, I'll just do a quick recap or resetting. The event today is Overcoming Imposter Syndrome. So if that's what you signed up for, you've come to the right place. And we have 3 speakers with us today. We've got Hassan in Canada, we've got Ruqayya who's in Minnesota, and we've got Kultoon in London. And hopefully we will be using a platform called Nuni, that is built by or co-founded by one of our own members in the community, one of the Somalis in Tech community members. And you can sign up via somalisintech.nuni.io, and we will be answering questions there as well. So Hassan, who's just put in a question, please do sign up to Nuni, put your questions through there, and it will allow us to answer the questions that most people want answered. And what I mean by that is there's a facility to vote. So Hassan, for instance, you can vote and your question can be voted on. So that way we can answer the questions that the most members who are in this event today would like answered. So that's just a bit of background, and thank you very much, Hassan. That's just so resetting. Now, next question. What I wanted to know is when did you first feel? So, for example, I think everyone's mentioned that they didn't go through the computer science route in a university. So, when did you first feel this imposter syndrome, and what do you think made it come about? I'll ask Hassan first, because you mentioned that you know, you kind of taught yourself, and then found yourself suddenly in a work environment. So yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that was actually the first moment. So I do want to preface with the fact that I've always felt imposter syndrome, regardless of what I was doing before. So whether it was my mining engineering work or even in high school. But it's really profound, I think, in tech for many different reasons. And I noticed that the most when I started working, because again, this is, I think, a pro and a con. I was sort of thrown in the deep end, and it was like, just figure it out. You signed up for it. And there was people I was working with who had literally tens of years of experience, and they can literally whip what I was trying to do in a couple of days, which would take me weeks. And we had like really sharp deadlines. So I think the con of that was some really long hours. Like I remember sitting there from like 9 a.m. to like 10 p.m. sometimes, trying to get the work that I wanted to get done. And I just felt like, what am I doing here? To the point that I actually went up to one of the leaderships members of the project and mentioned that maybe this isn't a good idea for me. Maybe I should just drop what I'm doing. And this is like a fun tidbit. A twin brother of mine who's done a very similar journey of mine was the person who encouraged me to continue doing what I was doing. And he actually was in the same project doing the development work for the first time. So that's also another broad topic. Just having that support system was huge. But I remember that was some difficult times. So much so I used to come home and I literally had dreams thinking about code and missed deadlines and projects. SubhanAllah. But I do
Wow.
I want to end this with the fact that it gets better over time, right? Once you met, I came from as newbie as possible. So once I was able to go over the initial hurdle, get that little bit of confidence, it helps a lot. And even now, I do want to end this with, I still feel it. Like there's so many different topics in tech. If you put me in something that I haven't seen before, I'm going to be like, yo, I'm sorry, this is not my background. I haven't done this before. But alhamdulillah, getting to a point where you feel a little bit more confident in what you do, it does help a lot.
Absolutely. No, that's really interesting to hear. And I think as well, having that support network system, whether that is through work or family, is definitely something that is very much beneficial in helping us get over the line. Even myself, I recently joined a new team. And it's a team primarily made up of data scientists. I'm a product manager. I haven't worked with data scientists before, so I've come in and sometimes I'm thinking, wait, am I doing things the right way, or is there a different expectation of myself? So I can definitely relate, and it's something that we all feel and I guess experience, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's something that has a hard end, or like something you'll suddenly overcome, but hopefully we can definitely talk about ways to manage these things, because that's what I think it's all about. Kaltoon, as somebody who's done an apprenticeship, so apprenticeship for context, by the way, is in the UK is you start the job and you get paid, and you also do some form of learning on the side. So it might be that you do university 2 days a week, or you do college or high school diplomas, for example, on the side. So Kaltoon, how was that for you, having to being a student but also learning? How did you approach it's imposter syndrome, so to speak?
I think I felt imposter syndrome like as soon as I started the job, because I had taught myself only a little bit of what I needed to know. So when I came in and there was all this extra stuff that I had no idea about, like just work processes, how to conduct yourself in a meeting, how your calendar works, like all of those like little extra things that nobody really warns you about before you start, it was quite overwhelming. And it was my first official job ever. So I felt like a fish out of water. so early on, I was really like floundering around. And I remember specifically in our engineering team, we have something called tech support. And tech support is when they put a specific engineer to solve the problems that our users are experiencing. So say a button doesn't work, they will contact our support team, and our support team will pass on that bug to the engineers. I'm sorry about that, I've lost the light. They'll pass it on to the engineers, who will then go off and try and fix the bug. So early on, they gave me tech support role. They threw me into the deep end. They said, listen, you don't have to solve any bugs, but see what you can do. And I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to solve any of these bugs. Like, I'd constantly come back to the senior engineers for help. And these guys were solving these bugs so quickly, like it was second nature to them. So I felt like I didn't know anything, and I wasn't in the right place. So yeah, early on, I was a little bit, I had a lot of imposter syndrome, but obviously going to college, I learned more and more, and I had to balance my studies at the same time. So it was quite overwhelming in the beginning, but I managed to put some things into place, which really helped me out. So, and I'll let you guys know about that a little bit later on.
Cool, we'll definitely come back to that. Thank you, Khaltoon. Also, Ruqayya, so somebody, you came from an international relations background. This is somewhat new to you. Did you? How did it come about for you?
I think for me, it was definitely when I was in boot camp, a lot of people were career switchers. So I didn't feel it that much. I actually didn't even know what imposter syndrome was until like my first tech job, and I started going to tech events and people would talk about it all the time. And I guess they just named how I was feeling. But I definitely noticed it when I was at intern at BuzzFeed, because I was super junior. It was my first job. And everybody in my team was super senior. So similar to what Khaltoon was talking about, like everyone in my job has been in this industry for like 10 plus years, and they've been doing what they're doing for so long. And also for me, it was in addition, like I had to completely learn a new language that I didn't know from boot camp. So that also impacted a little bit. But another perspective that somebody taught me is like, part of it is yourself and your self-confidence, but another part of it is also that for so long, so many people who look like us, who are women, who are Black, they've been told that they don't deserve a seat at the table, right? So you internalize that, and that also plays into your imposter syndrome, because you're like, I don't deserve to be here because society has told me that I don't deserve to be here. But also, I feel like I'm super new into this field and I don't feel like I deserve to be here as well. So it's like, for me in the beginning, it was a lot of those two things playing a part in my imposter syndrome for sure. And like trying to prove myself to myself and trying to prove myself to like, I do belong here. So it was a little bit of both for me.
Cool, thank you. Thank you. I think that's an interesting point as well about how it's how much of a role society plays and the expectations on us, and how that makes us perceive ourselves to be potentially an imposter. That's hopefully something that we can unpack as well.
Yeah, just to add on to what Ruqayya said, the confidence one and the way that people see you is it really impacts you a lot, because every time you feel down about yourself, the first thing you're going to think of is, yeah, maybe they put me here for the diversity tick. Like maybe they just want to say that they've got a female engineer, they've got a Black engineer or whatever. Maybe they just want some tax write-off because you're an apprentice. But you really have to talk yourself out of those thoughts in the back of your head.
Wow, yeah, definitely. That's a whole. I hadn't really thought about that. The fact that you get tax breaks for hiring an apprentice, and maybe the fact that what impact that could have on you. Wow, yeah, that's definitely another layer to the whole conversation, for sure. I've got a few more things that I would like to discuss before we come on to some of the questions from that the audience has put in, which I can see there's quite a few questions already actually. But like a large part, what's often discussed is that maybe we might feel imposter syndrome because of not maybe enough focus on our success or successes, shall I say. This is just an open question. Anybody could answer this if you feel like this is for you. But were there any successes that you were not taking ownership of? And does either of you feel that that's something that is an important thing to consider?
I could take this one. There was
Go
definitely
ahead,
things
Kulthum.
I was downplaying. I think especially early on when you do something that you think every other engineer can do, like if you fix something with the front end, like HTML, CSS, just like a small bug, you usually just brush it off and be like, yeah, that was really easy. Like, don't worry about it. Like, you don't need any kind of applause for stuff like that. But also, in our company, we do a lot of pairing, and pairing is when two engineers work together at the same time on the same problem. And more often you're paired with a senior engineer. So they're really running the show and telling you what to write and kind of coaching you through it. So even during those periods, I would be like, yeah, I didn't do anything here. I was really like just typing. The other person was doing a lot of the legwork. So it was stuff like that I wasn't like appreciating for myself.
Cool. That's a fair point. Fair. I guess, yeah, because with a lot of the roles that you're doing, there's a lot of pair programming, and I would have thought as a non-developer that would be an opportunity to I guess overcome like, or maybe, you know, if you're working with a supportive and more senior developer, or even if it's a peer, but if you're in a supportive environment, then this is maybe one of the ways that you could overcome the imposter syndrome, so as to speak. But it's interesting to hear that when you're working with a more senior person, it might even exacerbate things, because you're kind of letting them do the work, and you're not really focusing on your own success. But cool. If there is there anything from Hassan or Ruqayya, or should we go to the next question?
I think the one thing I'll add, which I think is something that I've noticed over time, is depending on people's personality types and the people you interact with, some people are just naturally more verbose in terms of the things they've done and the things they've worked on, whether it's on the job or even outside of the work. So I've noticed naturally for myself, you know, it tends to affect your thought process sometimes, because depending on if you're the kind of person who doesn't talk about the stuff that you do, you just keep it to yourself. Let's say you do your work, but someone else naturally would say, "Oh, I've done this, and I've been here, and I've overcome this." It could affect, and it's affected me before. I'm like, you know what, thank, you know, this person's got it all. You know, they've done it, and I think just that concept can be expanded on so many different things. So I think it's a great question, to be honest, because I often tell myself people are different in terms of how they broadcast themselves. You know, somebody who naturally is more broadcasting and extroverted in terms of the stuff that they do shouldn't affect, let's say, myself in terms of how I feel. So I think it's a great question. I just wanted to add that point.
Yeah, I would also add, Mohammed, this is a good question. I was thinking about it for a while, but it's this whole concept of like, when you do feel like an imposter, you feel like your voice and your thoughts and your knowledge is not the same as other people in the room. So like,
Definitely.
times I would notice where like I had an idea or I knew an answer to something, but I second guessed myself. So I didn't say it. And then somebody else said it. And I was like, oh, wow, like I should have just said it, because it's like I was playing into that self-confidence, not having that confidence and having an imposter. So just learning to like undo that, like, you know, even if you have an idea, just say it, because it's probably going to be like, it's going to be accepted like everyone else's idea. And I just noticed like that happens all the time. And I used to always beat myself up for like, I should have just said that. I should have just said that was the answer, or that's the bug, or you know what I mean? So I noticed that
Definitely.
as well.
No, I can definitely relate to that as well. I've done that loads of time, probably too many times. I thought, actually, maybe I should have just said it, and then I'll say it. I'll give myself 10 reasons not to say it. And then later on, somebody else, I was like, I really should have just spat it out. So definitely can relate to that. Cool. One final sort of question from me before we go on to answering some of the others. This is quite a big one, but we can sort of hopefully have a little bit of a back and forth conversation about this. It's, what would you say are some of the things that have helped you overcome this? So I'm going to ask Kulthum this, because Kulthum, you were alluding to something, but you kind of stopped yourself short. So I'd love to hear, you know, what are some of the things that you personally found helpful in overcoming sort of this? Maybe not like, oh, I no longer ever suffer from imposter syndrome, but maybe, you know, at times what's helped you with any potential anxiety or anything that would come of it.
It is definitely a process. But something that really helped was part of my apprenticeship, I had to write about, after 2 years of doing it, I had to write about all the stuff that I had learned. And I had to go all the way back into the tickets that I had completed and all the work that I had done, and realized that actually I'd learned so much over time, but I just wasn't aware of it. Because I feel like you always compare yourself to your current position and to the people you want to be like, but you never really look back and see just how much you've learned. So even now, if somebody was to say to me, what do I have to learn to be a software engineer? I know how to help them out, and I know how to get them to whereabouts I am. But and then looking back, you just learn how much you've learned, and all of the little things that you learn as well, like how to use a terminal, or even how to conduct yourself in front of your peers and your colleagues. Those are not small things. That's everything that you're just ticking off, and you're adding to your ability to be a good person at work, and also a good software engineer in general. So now every time I do something at work, I make sure to write it down. Like I built this and I fixed that, and just so a couple months later I can look back and be like, oh my god, I completely forgot about that button that I had fixed, or that feature that I had built. Even on my side project, I make sure to always write down all the cool things that I learn. So yeah, it really keeps track of my progress in that way.
Wow, I think that's really powerful. So just to confirm, so it's really what you said is you need to review your own work, and through that process of reviewing your own work or your own highlights, in a way, you're able to, I guess, reinforce the fact that you have gained, some knowledge throughout this time, and that can definitely be a confidence boost. But also writing down and recording your own highlights and recording your own successes, I think that's a really good point. And it's something that we were talking at work as well recently, which is like now we're at my place, we're at the end of year review. So, and everyone is kind of scrambling to be like, okay, what have I done in this whole year? And it's like, wait, obviously everybody's done a lot, but it's quite a big challenge to cover everything that you've done. But so more so what Kultun was saying, and I think it's advice that it sort of transgresses even just this topic, but like sort of periodically recording your own highlights, writing them down, whether you've got a Notion page or a Google Doc or a Trello board, and really being able to reflect on that as regularly as possible.
Yeah, the small things as well, like really, even if you think it's so insignificant, I spoke in a meeting today, or I fixed a spelling error, whatever it is. It's good to write it down, because you later on you'll be like, okay, now I'm running meetings. A couple months ago I just spoken one. So yeah, definitely. And also having a great manager really helps, because my line manager really is really encouraging, and he constantly tells me, like, you've learned so much, you're really good at the stage that you are, like, don't worry about it. So that's nice as well.
That's really awesome. Yeah, that's some really practical advice right there that hopefully people can take away. Ruqiyya, anything that you'd like to add to that, if anything?
Kultun, I really like what you said, by the way. Writing things down is so important. I think when I was thinking about this question, there's three main things that helped me. So the first one is verbalizing your fear. So like when you verbalize something, you make it real. So like if you feel like an imposter because you might not know the syntax of something specific in JavaScript, just say like, I feel like I don't know this. You could say it to yourself, you could say it to somebody else, but like once you verbalize it, it really helps you identify where your like gaps may be, or where you think your gaps may be, and then you can do something about it. So that's like one of the first steps that I use. The second one is like really having a community. And I feel like the Somalis in tech community could be a great place for that, where like if you do feel kind of low one day about something, just venting about it. And maybe that's all you really need, just to get it out of your system. And then somebody could be like, Mohammed or Khotun or Hassan could be like, no, you actually like what you're going on the right track. Like they can give you encouraging words to like help you get. So like having like a mentor or like a friend, or like Hassan said he had his brother, like having somebody that you can just vent to about how you're feeling is really helpful, that community. And then the third thing is really thinking about like, if you got a job, right, or you got an internship or apprenticeship, like I don't think the company would do you a favor by giving you something you didn't deserve. Like most companies are not going to spend money, and developers get paid a lot of money. They're not going to spend their money on somebody who they don't think meets the requirements, So like just keeping that in mind, like you actually deserve this role, you have the skills and the qualifications for it. And trust me, corporate America would be the first one to cut you if you didn't, or you know what I mean? Like they don't, like that's just like how they are. So like just remembering, like I do deserve where I am, and I do deserve the place that I'm in right now. And if you weren't meeting those expectations, you would have heard from like your manager, your colleagues, like you would have heard about it. So just keeping that in mind as well. So those are the 3 things that I use.
Thank you, Ruqayya. Again, like very practical. And I think even that's something that I just want to reiterate as well. The fact that you've got the job, it means, you know, you are the right person for the role. It's very unlikely that there is ever a job in such competitive industry that you were the only person to apply for the job. So the fact that you overcame, you know, that first hurdle already means that there is some value in either the work that you've done before, or the level that you're at, but also very importantly, I think we should remember potential. The fact that, you know, there is a level of growth that each person goes through as well. So yeah, definitely. And community definitely is another one. I find that you know, being like at work, we've got another sort of product management community, and being able to just ask some questions there of some more senior people, but also people on the same level is like fellow peers, I guess, is something really useful. So yeah, definitely. Thank you, Ruqayya. Hassan, any thoughts from you on this? You've already mentioned the support network.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Ruqayya and Khatun answered that perfectly. I think the only other thing I'll add that I continuously tell myself is failing is part of the process. I think for me, it's the most triggering when you mess up somewhere and it's like, oh, dang, I did that. I don't know, maybe I'm not supposed to be here, but it's natural. Like it's not possible to go through your entire career without making mistakes. So oftentimes I'll literally tell myself it is what it is. Given the fact that you're working in an environment where it's okay to fail, it's a big asset for sure. And being in that environment helps. But as long as you have that, it's natural. So I think that's something that I continuously tell myself, you know, especially when you're doing something new, you make that mistake, you know, jot it down, write it, keep it in mind, and next time just do a better job, ideally.
Definitely. Thank you very much. So yeah, everyone in the audience, I think you'd be really glad to know. We're going to hopefully tackle some of the questions that have been put through by Nuni. And I didn't actually include a question about Nuni in the feedback, but afterwards, I guess maybe just let us know. You can either let me know via Slack personally, or reach out to me on Twitter, or put your thoughts about Nuni afterwards as well. Mukhtar, who's put this together, would love some feedback as well, I'm sure. They're an early stage startup, so everything is about feedback. But yeah, so one of I'll hopefully go through the questions in order. Let me just refresh in order of how many have been voted on. So this first one, a lot of people have voted on. I wanted to as well, but I was just like, let me not, because it might skew things. But the question is, how do you advocate for yourself in the workplace? This question just goes out to anyone who would like to start on this, but it's the one that's been most voted on. It just got another vote since I've asked the question. So people we really want to hear an answer about this. So yeah, the question is, how do you advocate for yourself in the workplace?
I can chip in a few thoughts, and I'm happy to hear some of the other ideas here. So
definitely,
one caveat I would add is, depending on your workplace, there's certain ways to approach how you talk about feedback, or how you promote yourself, right? The one thing, and I'll mention a couple. The one thing is getting feedback from your team and the people you work with. So if your team is supportive, your lead is supportive, and you're trying to go, let's say, for promotion, or you're trying to advocate for yourself that I want to raise, leveraging that is a huge asset, both for it affects your mental state. It tells you, okay, it's just not me. People think I'm doing a good job. The other thing I'll quickly mention before leaving it to others to share some more ideas is, oftentimes, I don't know, maybe it's just maybe part of our community or people we're with, we're often told, especially outside of the workplace, to not often brag or talk about yourself, right? It's natural. You don't say, hey, I did this or I've done that. In the workplace, it's the opposite. It's hard. I keep telling myself that it's not normal, but especially if you want to go for something and other people are getting it, you've got to tell people that, hey, I've done this. I've worked this hard. I've hit those goals. Getting that continuous feedback from your manager is a huge asset. It's like, hey, we've talked about this 6 months ago. I've done all of this. So, where's the bag? Or, you know, in more serious terms, like, you know, I deserve to get whatever I want to get.
Definitely.
But yeah, I'm curious to hear what
Definitely.
other people say here.
No, definitely. I think that's some real stuff right there. And something we can definitely all take away, because I think culturally it's, you know, you don't want to be a bragger. And there is a fine line between, you know, an arrogant bragger or a humble bragger, so as to speak. But definitely something that needs to be done, because nobody else is gonna, you know, is gonna necessarily. You might have some people say, you know, Hassan's done this really amazing thing, but it's all, you also have to be your own advocate. And it's something that even I need to definitely work on myself. So yeah, thanks, Hassan. Any other thoughts on that from anyone else?
I could chip in here. I would say also, just what I was going to say. Yes, we have one-to-ones with our managers. So if you have a chance to have a one-to-one with your manager, you could ask them what requirements they want, what they want you to reach, like what do they actually want to see from you? Do they want you to do more features? Do they want you to fix more bugs? So that's a good way to know where you need to be at. And then if you build something really cool at work, or you solve a really interesting problem, show some of the other engineers, show them how you did it, write some docs about it and how it works. In our company, we have demonstrations by departments. So each department will demo what they're working on currently, anything interesting that they've learned, and then they will share that across the engineering team. So it's important to share all the things that you learn, and then that will make you more comfortable with sharing all the things that you work on as well.
Definitely, thank you very much, Kultur. That's really useful. So it's a combination of getting feedback both from your managers, your peers, continuously as often as possible, but also showing what you've done. Like in some workplaces, you've got show and tells or different formats like that. Being able to sort of even try to get the confidence to add your name onto, you know, I like my place, we have a spreadsheet where, you know, you can talk about things. Definitely that's a really good shout. Speaking of that, actually, in the Somalis in tech community, we've just started lightning talks. So we had our first one, I think 3 weeks ago now, and lightning talks is an opportunity for you to come and talk about something that you've done or are interested in. It could be on any topic, and we do them on the first Sunday of every month. So we've got the next one coming up this Sunday, I believe, actually. So I think for this Sunday, we have a full list of speakers who have people from within the Somalis tech community who will be speaking. So do join the Slack channel if you're not already. I will reshare the link to the spreadsheet. So it's an opportunity for you to get some practice in even before work. And as Kultur said, it's a very useful way to overcome any doubts. And just one other thing that I really like that you mentioned was notes, or writing down what you've actually done, whether so that it's something that can be used by other developers or other colleagues even. So myself, as I said, I work with a lot of data scientists, and a lot of the information, having just joined, has been through reading documentation that different teams have written, different people have written. So definitely that's another good way to highlight your success, and it's something that people can always refer to. Thanks, Kultur. Cool. Ruqayya, do you want to add anything to this, or would you like to hit the next question? We could start with you for the next one.
I think Hassan and Kultur hit it. We can go to the next
cool.
question.
Awesome. Let's do that. Do you think society, so by the way, for people, on uni, the question disappeared because I ticked it as we answered it. So that's why the question is no longer there. So the next one, how can you recognize that you're suffering from imposter syndrome and not anything else? So Ruqayya, we'll start with you, but I'll just read that question out one more time. So I'm just putting my battery in. Bear with me, folks. Yeah, there we go. How can you recognize that you're suffering from imposter syndrome and not anything else?
This is a really good question. I think something I would say is, like, are you really lacking in your self-confidence with your, like, in the context of software or any work? Is it in your field of expertise? Are you lacking in self-confidence of that? Are you second guessing your voice, your insight, your thoughts, your knowledge? Are you having a lot of, like, I need to do better. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Are you just waiting for like the rug to be pulled under your leg? It's like a saying in the States where like you're just waiting for the final shoe to drop. If those are some of the things that you're actually facing, and it's not at all like nobody else could say, yeah, I noticed you're not performing the way that you are. No one else can be like, you're not doing what we expect from you, then I think those are like few signs where you might be suffering from imposter syndrome.
Definitely. Thank you. Yeah, this is a tough one. I don't have anything else to add to that. Hassan, Kaltun, do either of you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that was very well said, by the way.
Okay, cool.
I agree.
1 second. Mukhtar gave me some really good advice. Let's share this. And thanks. I wanted to do this earlier, but forgot. Thank you. So yeah, hopefully you can all see the questions. Cool. So we just answered this one. Let me just tick it off, and off it goes. Cool. So the next question's got 7 votes as well. Do you think that society has conditioned us to believe that success is reserved for wealthy white people? Anybody'd like to give this one a go?
I can actually touch on that a little bit because I think I talked about that in the beginning, but it's basically like I know a lot of our countries are a little similar and we are the minority people in those countries. So I would say there's a lot of it has to do with society telling you don't have the seat in the table. And there is a lot of people who feel society has told them you do have a seat in the table with there's no backing in that. So like, let's just say mediocre, like white men that can just make their way all the way up into like being a president with no credentials, right? So there's a group of people that have been told you do have a seat at the table. And there's been a group of people that's been told you don't have the seat at the table because the way you look and your gender and your race. And I feel like that has a lot to do with imposter syndrome as well. Because so it's not, I would say 50% of it is your self-confidence, but 50% of it is just the way that the system is made up. So I hope that answers your question.
Definitely. No, I think it really does. You did mention earlier, about how we've internalized expectations on ourselves. And I think this question really touches on that. I think even this might be going off on a bit of a tangent, but we've seen in America with regards to funding for startups that there is a big difference between what people of color and women get in funding, and how much they get and how late they get it. So how much they have to prove before getting any funding, compared to some white counterparts. And of course there's a lot in each case, but if you look at the trend, there's quite a clear difference there. So I think it bringing that whole point back into this. I do feel that some of us might have been told as well, that the fact that we have to work harder in order to get to the same place, and that could lead to thinking that maybe some people are more deserving of the position, where that really isn't the case. And let's be honest, like most of us, I did a sociology degree, and everything was very Eurocentric. We have to consider the environment in which we find ourselves. It's the same for the people who are in America, what's it called, Canada, and so forth. The curriculum is written by a certain people and primarily for a certain group of people. But it's definitely important to bear that in mind, and to not let that be something that strongly influences, I would say, what directional steps that you want to take. And again, coming back to the point of community, we've seen so many people who have achieved so many things within our community and many other like minority communities as well. In the UK, we have things like Islamic makers, so it's a Muslim community, and deen developers, and so forth, and seeing what we have, what other minority communities are doing and coming together. I think bearing that in mind is something that will support us. But yeah, good question. Took us very much into the sort of international relations realm and the forth. So we will move on. from that one, inshallah. Hope we answered your question. Can you share strategies that have boosted your influence while building, or creating at work? So can you share strategies that have boosted your influence while creating at work? I'll let you try to answer that one. Hassan, would you like to give your thoughts on this?
Sure, definitely. I think there were some good comments made from some of the other questions. I think answers this question well. Like Khatoon made a very good point. Like document all the good stuff that you do. It could be small, it could be big, documented. When it comes to promotion time or the time where you want to go up to your lead and talk, you have that backing, right? You have that, documented. You say, hey, I've done this and done this and done this. So that's a strategy that I think is incredibly helpful. Another strategy that I quickly mentioned is getting feedback from people within your team, the people that you've worked with. If you have a great feedback from the people that you've worked with, that goes a long way to telling your lead or your leadership team that, hey, this person is doing significant impact. And I think I'll close with, there's no better advocate than yourself. So you have to generally feel like if you've put in good work, whether it be long hours, whether it be difficult, convoluted pieces of work that other people don't really understand, it really comes down to you to best explain it as much as possible and to say, hey, I've done this, and and showcase it, and what, be it team meetings, demo days, show and tells. But yeah, that'll be, I think, my quick summary.
Yeah, 100%. And just to add on to what Hassan just said, documenting is really important, but also finding new and inventive technologies to introduce to your colleagues as well. For example, if they're not doing any kind of testing at work, try to bring up the fact that maybe they should be doing some testing, and just like improving their engineering standard and the way that they build products in your workplace. If it's not at a specific standard, try pushing harder for that standard. And if you're passionate about things like that, they'll see you as an engineer who is really passionate about the way that the engineering team operates and what you're using operates as well. So yeah, just if you can, try to push some innovative ideas to the engineers who are above you, I guess.
Definitely. I think that's a really good point, and I keep banging the same drum, it feels like, but like building on that point, a good way for you to do that, in addition to like your own research and stuff, is through joining a community. So you'll see that Hassan's at Shopify, they might do something different to what Khatoon does at Land Tech, and vice versa. Khatoon might do something at her workplace that Hassan would find beneficial, and it's through communities and conversations that I think that we get to explore this, and we can then use those as I guess a strategy to boost influence at work. So yeah, that's a great shout, Khatoon. Cool. What we'll do is I'm going to take this one off as well. There was actually one question that was put in the Q&A. I know what I said would be sticking to uni today, but it's a pretty dope question. So I'm going to put that question through. So it is, the question is, they say, sorry, it won't be on the uni screen. I'm just reading out from the chat. They say, fake it till you make it. How do you fake it with confidence? It's a vulnerable position to be in. So I'll just say that again, since it's not on the screen. The question is, they say, fake it till you make it. How do you fake it with confidence? A question mark. It's a vulnerable position to be in. So that's a haymaker of a question now. So we're gonna go straight to Ruqayya. Ruqayya, let us know, how do you fake it with confidence, knowing it's a vulnerable position to be in?
I mean, I do agree with the questioner that it is vulnerable for sure. I would say that some things that I do is, so if you tell yourself, I'm not good enough, it's what you tell your brain that actually becomes reality. So if you keep telling yourself, I don't feel like I'm good enough, you'll start to not be good enough. So it's just twisting that and actually practicing a different set of messages. So saying, I am good enough, I am capable, I'm a great developer, I do deserve where I am. And just, I know this sounds a little weird, but it works. Like if you keep telling yourself the same set of messages over, it works in the positive direction, and it also works in the negative direction. So you're not really faking it till you make it. You're really just changing the messages you tell yourself, and it's actually going to show in reality. And it's been proven in, like, you know, psychology and all these different studies that actually does work.
Definitely.
So I would say try that.
Definitely. So a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, and telling yourself something, you know, enough times that you actually end up benefiting from it. I must say, this just before we come to you, Khaltoon, this is very much, it feels like going back to sociology 101. And it's like, you know, we're moving away from the tech, but it's really good to see the intersection of, you know, tech and our upbringing in society and socialization. So before I get too into that stuff that I thought I forgot about, Khaltoon, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to what Ruqayya said. If you do have a role as a software engineer, it's more expensive for the company to replace somebody like you who already knows the product and the engineers and works well with the team. It's more expensive to replace you with a new engineer. So in that sense, you're kind of irreplaceable. So they're not going to get rid of you. You've got your place there. And you deserve to be there 100%. And if they do get rid of you, then it's a big expense on their behalf. So they're going to do way more to train you up and to push you to be better than they are to ever say that you're not doing well enough. It's the job of your senior engineers and your managers above you to support you and to bring you up and build your confidence as well.
Cool. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Khaltoon. I've been waiting for someone to ask a question like this next one. How do you think our cultural upbringing as Somalis impacts feelings of imposter syndrome? With it being Somalis in tech, it wouldn't have been even an event if we didn't get a question like this. So, yeah, how do you think our cultural upbringing as Somalis impacts feelings of imposter syndrome? Any takers for this one?
I can throw in some thoughts.
All right, cool. Go.
I definitely think there is an impact for sure, and I think I alluded to this at one point. I think the impact potentially could arise from the fact that, you know, oftentimes in our community, if you're given a good position or a good role or a good opportunity, sort of like, you know, don't just be happy and, you know, be confident and be content, alhamdulillah, and just be okay with where you are. And I do want to mention that there's a fine line. Obviously, I'm not saying don't be one or don't do the other. So don't obviously say, you know what, no, I don't care. I want to get everything that I want. Or in the same time, I think it's very important for someone not to tell themselves continuously, even if they're in a bad position, that, you know, as long as they have it, they're okay. I think this exists in the community. Obviously, everybody's different. Every upbringing that they have, whether it's from a different area, I'm sure it affects them differently. But I would say it's definitely good to think about it as much as possible, because one of the other questions up above, when they mentioned people who, let's say, were maybe, you know, white men, or just people who were born in the area that you grew up, you may notice that their upbringing is very different. You know, they have a sense of flamboyance in terms of how they broadcast themselves and whatnot. So everyone is different. I definitely don't want to make a blanket statement here, but I definitely think there is an impact depending on your upbringing, and it's something to think about.
I would definitely echo what Hassan was saying, especially his initial point of, like, Somali Nima teaches you not to be, like, you can't brag. You can't even do a humble brag. So it's kind of like in corporate America, in corporate world, you actually need to do that to be successful. So it's like unlearning that from, like, the way you were raised, and, like, it's really hard. I guess I'm still trying to figure it out, but it is definitely affects that. You know, you need to find a way to celebrate your wins, but in a way that still is true to who you are.
Definitely. I think that's really, really important about celebrating your wins. I do feel like, in a way, you know, we are we are taught to kind of, you've got a job, you're in a fortunate position compared to, maybe you might have family back home, for instance, that in a very much a different position. And like the culture at work itself can be quite cutthroat. If there's one promotion going, people will definitely, like Hassan was alluding to earlier, people who have, trumped their horn, so as to speak, might be seen for that first. But I think as well, like I feel like our culture it can also be used as a we can take some strengths from it. The fact that we're told generally, that we should be proud. There's a lot of that within, I think cross-cutting across the Somali culture. So, the fact that you should be proud of your work, even if you should even be proud of your failings, if you take it as a point of learning. So I think if we try to focus on some of those as well, it's something that we could use, come at it from a position of strength, rather than weakness, inshallah. Wallahi, really good questions. So look at this now. I'm learning new things about the platform. Well, I guess I should have done this a long time ago. I'm still sharing my screen, isn't it? Yeah, so I should have done this a long time ago. Mukhtar, sorry, brother. You did tell me about this in the demo that we had. But yes, as you can see, I've highlighted the questions that we were talking about at the time. I should have done this a long time ago, but hey, we've got 20 minutes to really enjoy the focus on each question, inshallah. So I will, and that got 6 votes. We'll come to this question now. How did you overcome difficult moments during your first tech role? So Kaltoon, we'll start with you as you're in your first tech role, I believe, at Landtech. How did you overcome difficult moments? Yeah.
I have a really good manager that I have a really good relationship with, alhamdulillah. So I kind of cheated and asked him how he got through difficult moments. And he told me that he still goes through difficult moments and he still forgets things even at his seniority. He's been programming for 10 years plus. And there's times where he still has to Google JavaScript syntax just to make sure that it's right. So speaking to somebody who is above you in the role and just asking them for some advice on how they feel. And if somebody feels the same thing as you, and on top of that, if they're more senior than you are, so it's very comforting to be like, yeah, maybe I'm not a weirdo for feeling like I don't know what I'm doing. Because most of the time, a lot of people don't know what they're doing and a lot of people are faking it till they make it. So yeah, I'd say speak to your managers.
Thank you very much, Kaltoon. That actually answers one of the questions that was put in the Q&A by Liban, who asked, should you communicate your thoughts about your imposter syndrome to colleagues and managers? So thanks, Liban. That question has been answered by Kaltoon. Would anyone else like to make a point? So just by the way, we'll be finishing at past, hopefully. So we've got about just under 20 minutes, and we do have a few questions that we'll get through as well. We won't finish all, but we will think about how we can answer any unanswered questions. But we'll come back to that. I think we've got a little bit more time left. Cool. If there's no more on anything and someone would like to say on that, I'll move on. Thank you for the person who posed that question. Let's tick it off. Cool. I think this question we've sort of we've I guess covered different points, but so the question is, what technique have you found best to deal with imposter syndrome? So some of the things that have been mentioned, I'll go over because some people might have joined late, but one of the things is to review your previous work. That's something that is very beneficial, and you'll get some confidence from that. Join a community. It could be a tech community, it could be a Black community focused one, Muslim, Somali. Join a community, or for example, it might be subject matter specific. Maybe for example, Hassan is very prominent in the Vue.js community, I believe. So join a subject matter specific community where you can get your thoughts and you can see what others are doing as well. There was a point about the fact that you actually do deserve the role that you're in. So do reflect on that. You have been hired. There have been many people that were going for the role. So, you've got that to deal with as well. So that should fill you with some confidence if you're already in a role. Kaltorn earlier mentioned about feedback. Get feedback from your manager, from your peers. It's through feedback, especially the tough feedback, or the tough love feedback, where you'll be able to improve. So make sure when you are asking for feedback, like I'm based in London, British people can be a bit polite. So do let them know, hey, like, runta isheg, tell me the truth. Like, I'm really here to hear it. So that way you should be able to get some good feedback. And from your peers as well, that could be quite beneficial. And it was also mentioned that you should do demos. So do show and tells, demo to one of your friends, one of your colleagues, if you have to, or organization wide. And those are some of the already techniques that's been mentioned. And Hassan also mentioned, use a support network. If you have family, if you have friends, do liaise with them as well. They could be a source of strength and a reminder of why we're doing what we're doing. It might be for Haya, Abo, etc. So yeah, I think we can move on from that question, because we've really covered that. Unless anybody would like to say something else, but if not, I will move on and I'll take that question off, inshallah. Thank you very much for that question. This is a question for Hassan. You mentioned in your intro that you left a full-time gig to be an intern for Shopify. I assume there was a lot of confidence in your ability to move up in Shopify. Can you speak about the dichotomy of being confident but feeling like an imposter at the same time, and how you balance that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So I definitely want to mention that it was a difficult decision to make for various reasons. One was, potential down level, and similar to what the question was alluding to, it's like, does that mean my skills have gone backwards? Does it mean that I can continue growing in my career if I take this step? So it wasn't actually an easy decision to make, but alhamdulillah, one of the things that I kept telling myself was, make a decision, do your best. I think that's something that I continuously tell myself to do. As long as you put your genuine best effort, whatever comes out of it will be positive, inshallah. So for me to make that decision, I literally told myself, if things didn't work out and I wasn't able to move up and things ended quickly afterwards, I'll build that experience at least. And inshallah, I could have tried to leverage that elsewhere. So it's definitely not an easy so-called solution to this. It's something that I continuously deal with even today, right? It's like, at times you feel like, especially if you're put in a bad position or a difficult position, like, you know what, I shouldn't be here, or maybe I'm not in the level that I should have been in. But in the same time, you're expected to, be confident in the work that you do and do the best that you can. So it's always a fine line between them. But as long as you generally put your best effort, and that's what I try to do, it's, it is what it is at the end. Hopefully that answers the question. And I'll be happy to hear if anyone else has any input to this too.
Thank you very much, Hassan. Yeah. Does anybody else have a question? Because I would like to touch on this. I think it's just about, moving roles. But yeah, if not, we can move on to the next question, inshallah. Thanks, Hassan. I feel like that's you captured what the person was really trying to get at quite well. Cool. Downplaying our success wins is very common. Do we need to celebrate each other's achievements more vocally? Ruqayya, what do you think about this?
I'm trying to start, this is something I'm trying to work on right now, where not just being in the grind and just, hitting one milestone and then hitting another milestone, and not just stopping or reflecting and actually celebrating it. So I definitely think that all achievements should be celebrated, and because that will actually give you like drive to want to achieve another one. So like if you just send something in the Somalis in tech, one of the chats, or if you say, hey, I want to go out to eat, I got a promotion, like with some of your friends or something like that, I feel like that's really important, because that'll give you the drive to continue to wanting to do it even more, like hit another milestone. So yes, for sure.
Sorry, it took me a bit of time to come off mute there. Yeah, definitely. I think it's also about some of the things that we mentioned. Not the opposite to downplaying is upplaying, but recording and highlighting your success wins is something that we should try to do as much as possible, especially already being in in most workplaces anyways, being a minority. I think it's very, very important to celebrate each other's achievements as much as possible. So thank you very much for that. Just before I go on to the next question, we have a question in the Q&A chat from one of our younger members. It's anonymous, but 18 years old. They've asked, it's in the chat, they've asked, what advice would you give an 18-year-old who has just started getting into the tech industry? And thanks in advance. So what advice would you give an 18-year-old who has just started getting into the tech industry? And thanks in advance.
I can take this one.
Cool.
I think I'm a big advocate for apprenticeships. If it is that you want to go into software engineering, there are several software engineering apprenticeships. If you want to go into product management, there are apprenticeships for that, and many other roles in the tech industry. The good thing about an apprenticeship is that you get a job, you work, so you get that experience, but at the same time you can get a degree or a diploma or whatever it is. So if you really want a degree, you can still get that and be paid and be learning in the field that you really want to work in. And if you don't really mind not having a degree, then you can get a diploma, and it's a lot quicker. It would only take about 2 years, I think. So yeah, an apprenticeship's a really good way to go, and it will ease you into the workplace as well.
Kultun, on that one of the questions is on uni as well, is how does one get onto apprenticeships? Do you go through a series of interviews? Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
So I got my apprenticeship through a company called White Hat. I think they've changed their name recently, but if you search White Hat on, I'll put the link in the chat after, but White Hat on Google, they helped me get a couple of interviews with a few tech companies. One of them was Google, Facebook, the company that I work at, and another one. And then you go through the regular interview process. So they have an initial phone screening with you, and you talk to them on the phone. If you pass that stage, then you'll go into the tech interview bit, where they'll ask you a couple of questions on like something they would expect an apprentice to know, or somebody who's really new to tech to know. So it won't really be about what language that you've been studying recently, but more about logic, like logically, how would you solve this problem, stuff like that. And then it will go on like that. So you'd get another phone interview that way. So if you guys look through White Hat and look through their tech apprentices that they got going right now, you'll be able to apply and get for your apprentices there. Also, if you look on Indeed and you write apprenticeship, software engineering apprenticeship, a few of them might come up there as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kultun. I just want to add one more point as well. Like my brother got an apprenticeship through, got his job, I guess, through apprenticeship. So I'm a very big fan. And especially, now with a lot of university being back home, it's definitely something to consider. And I think it's within our community, is in most households, or many households, shall I say, going to university is seen as a requirement almost, or an expectation, shall I say. So the apprenticeship route is definitely another option, and you're able to get to get a job more likely than not where you actually are as an apprentice, without having the student debt that a lot of us who went to university do carry. So definitely big plus for that. I want to ask Hassan and Ruqayya, like are you aware of apprenticeship equivalents or such in maybe Canada? Let's start with Hassan, and then Ruqayya, if you could say something about what that looks like in America. I'm sure it's a bit different to here in the UK.
Yeah, I was just actually going to say, majority of the time, oftentimes in Canada, I think the best thing I would encourage people to do is to do co-op programs, is what we're big on. So there's certain universities where the computer science program is incredibly strong, because within every summer or every other 2 terms, to literally place the student in a work environment where they're an intern for the summer. So I would encourage that, similar to what Kultun is saying and similar to what Mohammed is saying. It's that same concept as it's an apprentice, but you're getting that experience as you're learning. That's a huge asset. So yeah, that's what I would say for sure. And I'll be happy to hear what Ruqayya says on what it is in the States.
Yeah, in the States, we have a concept of internships. So most of them in tech are paid. So I would recommend folks to actually start off with an internship. And they usually have conversion programs within the internship. Like if you stay as an intern, and like it'll be easier for you to actually come in as a full-time role. So a lot of companies do that here. I would also add on the advice part, one thing I would tell an 18-year-old is definitely get a mentor. There's so many super successful, mashallah, people in the Somalis in tech group. Reaching out to any of somebody who you feel like you can relate to and ask them to be your mentor, because I feel like that's really helped me in my career. Because sometimes it's smarter to learn from, there's two types of people who make their own mistakes and learn from them, and people who learn from other people's mistakes. And I feel like in tech, if you do have a mentor, it'll be very easy for you to not reinvent the wheel and learn from someone else's mistakes, and they can really help guide you in so many different parts of the industry.
Yes, that's a really, really good point. I'm also in the trying to get a mentor, and it's something that we would like to do with Somalis in Tech, to put in place a mentorship program. So with the feedback form that we've got, just a reminder before we'll take one more question and wrap up, but do let us know what else you would like the community to do. It'll be very, very helpful for us to understand that we can focus on the things that we think will have the most impact. But yeah, thank you very much to you all. Perfect. We've got one more question that has 4 votes, so we'll take that one before wrapping up. But if we could please share the feedback form in the chat as well. Do fill it out. It's very useful for us, not only to find out about this event, but we really want to know what you want us to focus on next, which I think is the last question. So we'll share the feedback form in the chat. The final question that we'll go on is, can you share examples of when you grappled with trusting your gut over evidence presented to you while building? So can you share examples of when you grappled with trusting your gut over your gut over evidence presented to you while building?
I think the one definite comment that I can make here is when it comes to actual development work, sometimes I've noticed I've been in this position where I've tried to over-engineer what I was doing just in case it wasn't correct. And then evidence in this context or people's feedback, whether it's through a review of the work that I was doing or just genuine one-to-ones, where they're like, yeah, you could have done this a lot sooner, you could have done this a lot quicker. So that's one example that I could come up with. It doesn't happen often, but there are times where I'm like, you know what, I can't do this just yet. It has to be perfect, or this report that I'm writing has to be, it takes me a few more weeks until someone's like, you know what, I've seen it, it's looking good. So I'll say evidence in that context is just people's feedback.
I can also add, I think one time,
Please
I think
go.
this happened to me recently where I kind of knew how to go about something, but I didn't know that it was basically I just asked somebody for permission. And sometimes I feel like you don't need to do that. If you do know the right steps to take, you don't need to validate your thought process or your strategy by asking for permission. And that's something that I was working on because of my confidence. And I feel like sometimes you can just run with it. And sometimes it's easier to later be like somebody giving you feedback on a code that you already written, instead of saying, oh, can I write this? If that makes sense.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Ruqayya. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who's asked a question. It's been really, really great to have so much engagement and interaction from the people who've been listening to us. So thank you very much for that. Let me just present. So we'll be wrapping up now. I wanted to say a big shout out to Hassan Ruqayya Kaltoon for taking part in this quite, really cozy conversation that we've had. And hopefully I've gained a lot of knowledge from this, and a lot of gems have been dropped. So thank you very much to you all. If we were in a live venue, I'm sure you're getting a strong round of applause right now. So thank you very much to you all for that. I also wanted to say one more thing. Again, I'm going to reiterate, please fill out the feedback, everyone. We want to know if this is the kind of event you want to hear, and we want to know what we've done well. We want to know what we could improve on. So please do let us know what your thoughts are about this event and future events as well. The other point I was going to say is I want to give a shout out to a lot of the SIT team as well, who've been in the background working on this. You know, we've got Faiza, we've got Abshir, we've got Idil, and we've got Adam, who's done a lot of the heavy lifting for this as well. Do follow us on at Somalis in Tech, and do join us our Slack channel. We have some community only events, so that aren't external, such as this one. So do join, and you'll be able to reach out to Hassan, Ruqiyya, and Kulthum directly. One thing, Hassan, I think I'm gonna go away now and like go to work saying "oh dank." I hope I use it in the right context. But it's been a pleasure, and thank you very much, everyone. And thank you to everyone who's participated as well. We'll close there today, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.